The newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. For presidential candidate and Vice President Leni Robredo, one of her goals is to ensure that no liar or corrupt person gets elected for president in the May elections. In her interview with journalist Corina Sanchez, Robredo said that she's not at all obsessed with Marcos Jr., but she added that anyone who makes a fool out of the Filipino people does not deserve to become the country's president. She also said that while the sins of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos are not Marcos Jr.'s sins, the fact that he still benefits from the ill-gotten wealth makes him just as guilty.
Anyone na minimake niya yung mockery, yung paniniwala ng tao na handang magsinungaling para lang ma-achieve yung kanyang ambisyon saka yung kanyang greed, ay kailangan natin labanan. At hindi lang ako dapat yung lumalaban doon.
Meanwhile, Robredo also said she deliberately chose a different color for her campaign to give a message of unity. She added that the color does not matter. She is still the same determined politician underneath it all.
Dapat hindi tayo ginagamit yung kulay para maglagay ng divide. In fact, sa lahat kong pakikipag-usap sa supporters, yun yung aking hinihiling.
Bongbong Marcos admits he is threatened by the disqualification case against him. Speaking with journalist Corina Sanchez, Marcos Jr. said while he is worrying about the result, he will not let it distract him from campaigning. Recall that Marcos Jr. failed to show up even through Zoom for the hearing of his disqualification case for allegedly having COVID-19 symptoms. But the next day, it was revealed that he supposedly shot an ad with his running mate, Sara Duterte.
Of course, I take everything seriously. I worry about everything, but I do not let it distract me from the campaign.
Meanwhile, Marcos Jr. denies having troll farms. This despite studies showing him as the person most benefited by disinformation on social media.
Find me one. That's my challenge. Hanapan mo ako kahit isa.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. also watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Infamous pastor called himself a modern-day Joseph after the FBI placed him on its most wanted list. According to Quiboloy, Joseph had tribulations because people were jealous of how much his father loved him. The self-styled appointed son of God also compared himself to Moses, who was persecuted by the Egyptians in the Bible. Quiboloy is currently wanted for sex trafficking, among others. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez says the country's remittances rose by 5% in 2021 and is expected to rise another 3% this year. Dominguez is also optimistic that as the economy reopens, the Philippines will meet its growth target this year. Let's watch this.
Our remittances were actually up 5% last year. In fact, the first 11 months, we were up 5% from 2020. So our remittances are healthy, and they are, and we expect it to even rise by maybe 3% more in 2022.
We know that the Philippines have an economic liberalization plan. Talk us through how that might play out for the economy.
We already have passed. This legislature has already passed the 3 liberalization laws that we proposed. These are the Retail Trade Liberalization Act amendments, the Foreign Service Act amendments, and the Public Service Act amendments. The last 2 are awaiting the signature of the President to be signed into law. The Retail Trade Liberalization Act is already a law.
All things considered, are you confident the Philippines can meet its growth target for the year?
Absolutely. We are very confident that we will hit between 7 and 9% this year. Last year, we actually exceeded by a little bit our projections. We hit 5.61%. And the fourth quarter, we were already at 7.7% GDP growth. So we expect as we open up our economy and as we are able to handle the COVID pandemic, we will certainly hit between 7 and 9% of our GDP growth this year.
Health experts are now studying if anti-COVID drug Molnupiravir can be taken as preventive medication after exposure to the virus. Speaking at yesterday's Laging Handa briefing, Asian Hospital and Medical Center clinical investigator Dr. Benjamin Ko said that currently Molnupiravir is successful in preventing severe cases, but they are now looking into whether the drug can actually prevent infections. If successful, Ko said it could be beneficial for those who live with people with comorbidities.
Maganda po, pag successful ang clinical trial na to, ang ibig sabihin yan, magdadagdag tayo ng indication dito sa gamot na to. Hindi lang pag nagkaroon ka ng COVID, pero magagamit mo na din ito pag na-expose ka sa isang tao na may COVID. Hindi mo na kailangan maghintay ng sintomas.
Let's now take a quick look at today's other top stories. Kingdom of Jesus Christ founder and Pastor Apollo Quiboloy has been declared wanted by the FBI, but the Justice Department says it has yet to receive any request to extradite him. Vaccination of children ages 5 to 11 years old will push through on Monday, despite calls to stop pediatric vaccinations. And today is the second and last day of the 2020-2021 bar exams. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later again at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now, www.signalplay.com, and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News. News.